It's Riley.
It's Sloan.
It's Briar.
Hang on to your broomsticks.
It's about to get eerie.
Today's episode could contain themes and elements uncomfortable to some listeners. Please check the episode description and remember to always take care of yourself.
Alright, so we are going to talk about one of my favorite vampire movies called The Lost Boys, which we should be all good and ready because we just watched it, because I found out 2 people out of the party have not seen it.
Not us. We're normal.
I mean, I just watched it like a couple weeks ago.
Well,
you know.
You saw it before the sig figs. Significant others.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking, yeah.
Anywho.
I think chemistry.
Okay, anyway, so for anybody who hasn't seen The Lost Boys, I highly suggest going and watching it before listening to this podcast because there's going to be some spoilers. But if you look into it, the narrowed down storyline of the movie is a mother and her 2 sons move to a small coast town in California. The town is plagued by bikers and some mysterious deaths. The younger boy makes friends with 2 other boys who claim to be vampire hunters, while the older boy is drawn into the gang of bikers by a beautiful girl. The older boy starts sleeping days and staying out all night, while the younger boy starts getting into trouble because of his friend's obsession. And the tagline is, sleep all day, party all night, never grow old and never die. It's fun to be a vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, sign me up.
So, what's interesting about it, if you watch this movie, it's not a kid's movie at all.
No.
It's very adult for the 80s. But what's interesting is that the original screenplay was supposed to be a vampire version of Peter Pan. That's why the title is called The Lost Boys. And it was it was about a group of young vampires around 5th and 6th grade ages. The Frog Brothers were supposed to be Cub Scouts, and Star was also supposed to be a boy.
So, and he was like trying to get his Wendy. There's still elements of that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, actually, the person who was supposed to direct it was Richard Donner, which also, he directed The Goonies. So that's why the whole storyline was supposed to be a younger group and a twist on the Peter Pan story. But he was in the process of directing Lethal Weapon, so he wasn't having time with it. So they brought on Joel Schumacher to hopefully have him direct it. And when he got the script, he read the young 5th and 6th grader storyline, and he hated it. He was like, if you want me to come on to this movie, we are changing some stuff up. Because he was worried it was going to be Vampire Goonies, and it was not going to do well.
So he just vetoed the idea. He was like, nope.
It was basically, from what I read, he said that if you want me to work on this movie, I'm going to change some stuff.
I would have watched Vampire Goonies, though.
I know. Maybe one day. So, they allowed him to change it up and stuff, and he got brought on. And there's just so many interesting facts about it and stuff. There's a whole bunch of different websites and stuff, and I just have a list of facts that I'm going to give you guys.
All right.
I'm excited.
I like movie facts.
So, this was actually the first film that both the Coreys were in. And this is how their friendship developed.
That's because you always think of them together, the Coreys.
Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting that this was their first film together. The Frog Brothers' names are actually a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, which I felt kind of stupid reading that because I was like, huh.
Really?
Yeah, no, like I didn't even think about it.
I caught it the first time I watched it. I was like, that's funny.
Which that's why I'm glad I'm telling you guys these facts, because there's some that I was like, I see it, and then others where I was just oblivious.
Yeah. I didn't put that together.
It's probably, I just went over some of his stories in class, so it was like fresh on my mind.
There's a bunch of posters in the movie, which you
I know, I was like, is that Molly Ringwald?
Yes, and like one in the cave, there's a poster of Jim Morrison, who recorded the original version of People Are Strange with the band The Doors. Then there's another poster when Star and Laddie are being carried into Sam's room. There's a poster of Echo and the Bunnymen who recorded the version used in the movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And talking about posters, there's a poster of Rob Lowe, which is an Easter egg to Schumacher's St. Elmo's Fire.
I saw that. That was on his closet door. I was like, oh, hello.
Which also, there is a little bit of conspiracy stuff that Sam was a little gay. And they were using that, but then other people were like, it was Schumacher putting in one of his other movies.
I mean, it was a shirtless Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
And
So-
then Molly Ringwald. Like, I like your taste in men a little bit better.
There we go. So that was a interesting one. The movie was really shot at a California seaside amusement park in the town of Santa Cruz. And it's California's oldest surviving amusement park. And it's still around, and working, because there's videos on YouTube of people going to the shots of where the movie was filmed.
Yeah.
And it looks exactly the same. The crew actually had to get permission to film there by changing the name of Santa Cruz to Santa Carla, because the scene where they're driving past the sign, it says murder capital of the world. Santa Cruz actually had some history with serial killers in the 70s, and they didn't want it to bring bad publicity.
Because it was the murder capital.
Yeah, it had some serious serial killer issues. So they got permission by saying, we'll change it to Santa Carla. And that way, it works. And also, they didn't have to fight too much, because they agreed with that. And also, they hired a bunch of locals to do the scenes. So, people got to be in the film. Jason Patrick, he plays Michael in the movie, is actually the son of Jason Miller, who played Father Damien in The Exorcist.
That's cool.
And his half-brother, Joshua John Miller, starred as Homer in another vampire movie called Near Dark that was also really popular in the 80s.
Not as popular, because I've never heard of it.
That's why I was the same way, but apparently looking into it, it's a really big 80s vampire film.
We should try and find it.
Mm-hmm. But talking about stuff that goes together, Kiefer Sutherland's half-brother, Angus Sutherland, played the David character in the role as Shane in The Lost Boys, The Tribe, which is the second movie. And also, their father, Donald Sutherland, played in the 1992 Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. He played her watcher, which I thought was very interesting, because when I read it, I was like, he did! I totally forgot that that's their dad.
That's cool. I like that they all have vampire ties. Maybe they're really vampires.
Da-da-da! So, you know how in the beginning scenes, or pretty much most of the scenes, David is always wearing black gloves? There's actually a reason. He broke his wrist during, when he was showing off doing tricks on his motorcycle, or his dirt bike, while they weren't filming. So he was in a cast throughout filming, so they just made him wear black gloves.
That's pretty cool. That was a good way to cover it up, because I thought it was just like his
fashion statement.
His cool mystique.
Yeah, no, he broke his wrist.
He's hiding his cast.
There's also a really iconic scene, which a lot of people don't know this, where his hand gets burnt in the sun and he lets out a single tear. That actually wasn't in the script at all. The contacts were so painful that they were making him cry. And he let out a single tear and they just kept it in the movie.
Because wasn't that was back in the day when, like...
They're made out of glass.
Yeah, I was about to say, they were, like, thick, hard...
That's
back
crazy.
before good cosmetic contacts as we know them today.
Yeah, they were made out of glass, and all the actors could barely stand them and could only wear them for about 10 to 15 minutes at a time because they were so painful. I know you guys are looking forward to this. The sexy sax man.
Yes!
Probably one of the most iconic scenes in The Lost Boys. He's actually really impressive. His name is Timmy Capello. He dropped out of school when he was 15 and trained at the New England Conservatory of Music. He also trained under jazz pianist Lenny Tristano. He toured with Tina Turner for 15 years.
Wow.
So, pretty impressive if you're touring with Tina Turner.
He's the beefy sax man.
Mm-hmm. He also performed with Peter Gabriel and Carly Simon. He got offered the part in Lost Boys after missing out on Beverly Hills Cop 2. The reason his muscles look so big is apparently he would lift weights whenever he could to keep his muscles pumped.
Oh.
So he's just pumping iron by day, playing the sax by night.
And whenever he got a chance to.
That's why.
Curling.
Did he stay greased up all the time?
It's probably just sweat. He's probably... Another funny thing, and actually it's pretty good that they got somebody who really had musical talent and stuff, because they only had a set amount of people that were supposed to be at that concert pit, but people thought it was an actual concert, so people just started
Showing up?
Yeah, showing up. So all those people, most of them are just random people that thought it was a real concert.
That's great. And it looks like a party.
Mm-hmm. Which that's also the beginning scene with the People Are Strange when it's just going down the streets. All those are real people that I guess got paid to be on film and stuff, but they were just the actual people that lived in Santa Cruz.
That's cool. Just some extras.
The movie cost $8.5 million to make, and it earned $32.2 million in North America.
Wow.
So let's say it went a little good.
Is that just the numbers of just like when it was released?
Yeah.
Like just the box office records?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of upset this didn't happen because it said Schumacher wanted to make a sequel called The Lost Girls with badass biker chicks.
Yes, that would have been so good.
Sign me up.
But he couldn't get Warner Brothers on board.
Crotchety old man.
I swear.
We'll make it.
Because he had planned on making a sequel. That was also the way David died, that he was still the same and he went peacefully, was going to say he didn't die and he was going to be a character in The Lost Girls.
That would have been so cool. Well, I kind of wonder about his death because it looked like it was antlers that he fell on.
Yeah.
It was antlers.
Then how did they kill him? That's not wood.
Well, I guess it was just anything.
Through the heart?
Just anything pierce your heart. It doesn't have to be a stake.
Well, I mean, Dwayne got killed by a stereo system.
But it's the arrow.
Yeah, arrow through his
I thought it was the
chest.
wooden arrow.
Oh, well.
That's what I thought.
Maybe it doesn't have to be anything. I always thought it was like a wooden stake for a specific reason.
That could have also been a point that it wasn't a wooden stake.
Yeah.
Because that was it. He came out and said David was supposed to be alive to be in the sequel.
Yeah.
At least a small part.
Yeah, so he probably planned it out to make it...
Mm-hmm. But couldn't get them on board. I wish it would have happened.
That would have been so good.
So good. Something that is exciting, though, and I hope they don't ruin it, it's rumored that CW is going to turn the film into a TV series.
Oh, that might be pretty good.
Please don't be Riverdale. Because Riverdale writing went pew!
Yeah. I still love it. I'm still loyal. Still loyal to Riverdale.
I actually haven't kept up with it.
Yeah, neither have I. We were supposed to watch it together and then
Went.
failed.
We've watched a lot. We watched all of it, but the last season, because during COVID, it just kind of started back up. So that's the only one we really missed. I still love it.
I need
Don't
to watch
trash
it.
talk it.
Everybody trash talks it.
No, well,
Garrett finished it.
good for you, Garrett.
So we all love Corey Feldman's character of Edgar Frog and how he's so serious and action-packed. Well, Corey Feldman didn't know how to play the character, so Schumacher told him to basically watch any Stallone movie, any Chuck Norris movie, and that's the character.
Okay.
So looking at it, it makes total sense that
I definitely see where his inspiration came from.
like pretty much any action-packed movie, that's the character you need to base Edgar on.
He came off as a super serious little teenager. You're like, man.
He even had the headband, the
Right,
rainbow
he's
head.
ready to go.
This I thought was funny. But also I could see him. Ben Stiller auditioned for The Lost Boys. Which I'm just imagining Ben Stiller as one of these characters. But I look back at him when he's younger and he could have totally played one of them.
How old was he at the time?
It's during the 80s, so he was probably in his 20s, 30s.
I'm not sure.
He was young. He was a young actor.
Did it say who he specifically auditioned for?
No, people really didn't know he auditioned for it, except he told People magazine, "Last time I saw a room full of so many talented faces was when I auditioned for The Lost Boys. It was between me, Kiefer, and the two Coreys." And that's his quote. That's what he told People magazine.
Interesting. So it had to be most likely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's born in 65, so he would have been around his 20s.
Yeah.
So, that I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
The Lost Boys actually inspired Joss Whedon with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I definitely see the similarities in that style. Because it reminds me of Buffy. Because the younger, where it's kind of goofy, they're just fighting vampires.
Yeah.
When he's like, oh, you're going to be in so much trouble.
Well, he told Salon the idea of them looking like monsters and then looking like people, that was in Lost Boys, and that was useful for us. So they look like demons, but look like people too.
Their stages.
Mm-hmm. He also said you could have somebody fool you, or someone like Angel seem like he's not a vampire, then he is one. So he definitely got that
transition-y.
Mm-hmm.
The face looks the same, similar too. The style of vampire changes.
Yeah, because they have the brow bone or whatever it is, and then the eyes and the fangs. Whedon also told Entertainment Weekly there's a little Billy Idol, a little Kiefer Sutherland, and every guy in a black coat.
Spike!
Yep, Spike, exactly. That's exactly where my mind went to when he said Lost Boys like Spike.
He said Billy Idol, and I was like,
who is that? I wonder who that is.
That's Spike.
The phrase "vamp out" also originated from Lost Boys and is used throughout Buffy, which I found interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then Donald Sutherland playing in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, just to finish that off.
Just to add a little more right on there.
The cinematographer, his name was Michael Chapman. He was pretty famous and did some really big pictures. He did The Godfather, Jaws, Taxi Driver, and Raging Bull. I think there was some more, but that's why the cinematography looks so good in it, because he knew his stuff.
He was not just it's not some B movie.
Yeah.
You can tell it for the time. Brett laughed at the people getting jerked up out of the cars in the beginning, and I was like, it was the 80s. They did the best they could.
They worked with what they had.
It was good for the time.
Which also, I believe that they were going to have scenes where you could see them flying, but they thought it gave an eerie feel where you don't see what's snatching. Like, this person just got snatched out of their cars.
I'm glad they didn't, because I think it would have added a huge cheese factor to the movie nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we watched it today, and I still think it was good. Was there some cheesy stuff? Yes. But I think if we saw them flying around, it might have been like a huge cheese factor and being like, oh, okay.
Well, also 80s effects, you're like, oh.
Right, because they're not going to look, they're going to look like a high school production of Peter Pan.
Yeah.
You know, compared to what we see today.
Well, because even in the fight with David and Michael, you can see the 80s effects in it. It's still good, in my opinion, but I'm glad that they cut it down. Like, that's when you only see them flying.
Right. It wasn't enough to take away from it. You know, there's some bougie movie people now that would watch it and be like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I think that one scene, and you're in it, and you're like, ooh, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just enough to where it doesn't affect the movie.
I also think them not having them in shot, because you would think in a moment like that, they're in their, like, vampire form.
Yeah.
So it kind of leaves it to where you really get the... when you first see them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The initiation process, and you see their vamped out faces. Mm-hmm. The order of the vampires' deaths was actually foreshadowed in the carousel scene when they step off, because Marco goes off first, Paul, Dwayne, and then David step off.
That's the order that they...
Yeah. It's also foreshadowing how they die when Edgar talks about the different ways that vampires die. He's like, some go quietly, some explode, some implode.
Yeah, I noticed that when I watched it, because I was like, each one that died had a different way.
There was actually supposed to be a different ending, too, than the grandpa one. And it was supposed to be a post-credit scene that took the camera back to the cave, and the camera would find a mural on the wall depicting a typical day on the boardwalk in the year 1900. And the camera moves closer and stops on one figure, a man in a straw hat grinning, and it is Max talking to a group of young men.
That would have been really cool. So, I think that would have added a nice look. Especially even with what the grandpa says, and he was, you know, he's like, the one thing
because he knows
never
it.
Stomach is all the vampires.
Yeah.
So that would have added a lot to it, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it lets you know how old they are. Because there was one where I read it was talking to a group of young men, and then there was one, it was talking to David and his gang in the year 1900.
Yeah.
So it lets you know how old David and them are.
Yeah.
Because you do wonder, there's no hint of it, really. But that would have been a nice...
Which, it was a TikTok, and I can't remember who it was that posted it, but it's a very interesting concept, and it's talking about, you've seen Stand By Me, right?
Yeah.
You haven't?
I don't think so.
Well, Kiefer Sutherland plays in it, and he plays the bad guy, and it's set during the 50s, and it's saying that, I forget the character's name in that movie, but he goes off on a binger, just doing crime and stuff, and then finds himself in California, where he meets a man named Max, who tells him, can party all night, live forever type deal, and then he lives through the 80s.
Interesting. So it ties it together.
Yeah.
I like it when movies tie together.
Which, it's not real, but I still like that.
In your mind.
It works
you can pretend
out.
that happened.
Mm-hmm. The name Michael or Mike was used over 100 times in the movie.
You do hear it a lot.
In some form or another. It's Michael or Mike is used over 100 times, which I can believe it, because...
Wait till Mom hears about this, buddy.
Another fun thing was the maggots in the Chinese food scene didn't want to move.
Oh.
So they put them in the box, and apparently they were just there. They weren't moving at all. So they had to get an expert bug guy to come in and help them to get them to move, and they ended up pouring lemon juice on them to get them to move. Which still, if watching it back again, I thought they moved a whole lot more. But they're not really. They're kind of just like...
Yeah.
So I could only imagine what they looked like without the lemon juice on them. Just box full of maggots.
They should have just used, like, plastic ones.
Be like, wait, is that Chinese restaurant that serves barley? The barley rice? The big puffer?
I don't know if they did the same thing with the worms or not. It just said the maggots did not want to move. Kiefer Sutherland actually had the fewest lines of dialogue out of all the main characters. Which is funny, because when you think about it, he doesn't talk a whole lot, but when you think of Lost Boys, you automatically think of David.
Yeah. It's his face. He's got that face. Just he's like a presence, and you're like, who's that?
It's David.
It's David.
Your favorite, Sloan.
He is my favorite. I can't help it.
It's kind of like with Beetlejuice, because you think Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice is the star of Beetlejuice.
Exactly.
And he recorded for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. All his scenes together is 10 minutes worth of content.
Yeah. So I guess movies do that with, if you're a good actor, man, you pull it off.
Well, that's, Schumacher actually praises his performance. This is a quote by him. He's a born character actor. He has the least amount of dialogue in the movie, but his presence is extraordinary.
Yep.
And he broke his wrist.
Yeah, trying to show off. He was a teen. They were all, like, in their early 20s and stuff.
And actors, and probably
It's the 80s.
Yeah.
It's the 80s.
Showing off. But they're frail, like little old people.
when you got sexy sax man, you gotta try to show off somehow.
There you go. There's actually a 220-page novel that was supposed to coincide with the release of the film. The author of it, his name was Craig Shaw Gardner. He was given the script prior to the films, and it was supposed to go into it, and there's a bunch of deleted scenes from the movie that's in the book, such as Michael working and more stuff about the surf Nazis.
Well, when we saw the credits, I didn't get the surf Nazis. So I thought it was funny when it was on there, and I was like, surf Nazis? And then I just assumed that's the party.
Yeah, that's the ones that they attack.
But I was like, what a weird way to label it.
Well, there's actually a comic book of the Lost Boys, and it goes into the surf Nazis too, and that's actually, it's supposed to go into the second Lost Boys, the tribe, because Shane is supposed to be one of the surf Nazis that survived from David, and he went into the ocean and survived off of sharks.
Oh, okay.
And then came back, and then he started his own coven of vampires, basically. But that fits, because if you've ever seen the second one, they're surfers.
Yeah.
And everything. But the comics go into it, and this book apparently goes into it, too. There's a bunch of deleted scenes that I wish they would have kept in the movie, because in some of them, you see how much Michael is a family-oriented person. Because there's a scene that's deleted, and he spends the whole day picking garbage up off the beach to help his mom with money. And he brings it to his mom in a Christmas card. He's like, I had some leftover money from Christmas. You can use it for bills and stuff. And then there's another deleted scene with him and his mom. She wants him to go off to college because he went and then he didn't finish because they moved. And he's like, I'm not going to go finish it because he wants to help her. And she gives him the money back and says, you'll need this when you go back to school. So that makes more sense. I wish they would have kept that in there because it would have made the changes of Michael more understanding of how Sam and his mom are like, you're not the same. Like, what's going on? You're completely different.
Yeah, because that's what I noticed, because Sam was like, you're acting weird lately. But I'm like, he's been in 3 scenes, and 2 of the 3 that he's acted the same way.
Exactly. Right. That's why I wish they would have kept that deleted scene, because it really would have shown, like, oh, he has changed.
Yeah.
And stuff. And also helps the fact of why he fought off being a vampire so much.
Yeah.
And stuff, because he wanted to protect Sam and his mom. Because if the way it was going, it was like, why not be a fucking vampire?
Yeah. You don't even see, like, even one of the earliest scenes, like, when they first get there and they're going through the amusement park. And he asks Sam, he's like, are you going to follow me around all night? So I'm like, that doesn't give this, like...
Brotherly love.
Yeah. I mean, not that I was like, you're awful. But I'm like, that's different than being this family guy, you know.
Well, there's also a deleted scene with him and Sam, and it shows more of their brotherly bond that they have. Because I think it's the scene right before the mom comes in, and he's chasing Sam through the house, and he's talking about, it's okay, we'll start life fresh here, and it's better for us. And then they start messing with each other like brothers do, and then he chases after them.
See, maybe they should have left at least one of those scenes in there to offer a little something different. Because I watching it, I don't get he's a family guy.
Yeah.
Other than, you know, he loves them, but it wasn't like anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Like, looking at it, why not be a vampire?
Right. Go for
Parents
it.
got divorced, you got moved from
Right, 'cause
Phoenix to California.
And that's kind of the attitude I always thought he had, was he was kind of rebelling because he was upset about moving.
Yeah.
So that's always the persona I've had of him. Not that he was a bad guy or that he hated his family, but he was trying to get wild.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, ooh, this pretty lady and these bikers, and he had his little bike that he rode around.
Yeah.
And I thought he was trying to, like, he wanted to get his ear pierced. So I'm like, oh, he's being a wild child.
There's also a deleted scene, which you can't even watch this scene, but they're interviewing Kiefer Sutherland, and they ask him what his favorite scene was to film during The Lost Boys. And he said it's one that you actually can't watch, and it's the beach scene where they're killing the surf Nazis. And he said they made him a prosthetic head that he was supposed to rip it open, dig into the brain and stuff like a kid digging into a cake.
Oh, gosh.
And he said that was his favorite scene to film. Because he said, I was covered in blood and just digging into this prosthetic head and stuff. And I really wish they would have left it, but they saw how gruesome it looked. They're like, this is a rated R movie, but maybe not this gruesome.
Too much. It would have been in there nowadays.
Yeah, but it totally would have been in a movie now. Because looking at Lost Boys 2 and 3, they were really gruesome. But you can also see during the scene a little bit of the head split because they're tearing the scalp from the brain type deal. But that just cracked me up that was his favorite scene.
The gruesome one.
That I had to cut out.
He must have been a wild child. No, breaking his wrist was nothing. He's probably doing crazy tricks.
Oh, probably. But talking about the effects and stuff, which this also goes into Buffy and stuff, V. Neil did makeup on both.
Which I almost asked about that earlier when we talked about the similarities and how they look. Because they do, her style, and even watching her, any of her other stuff, she has like a look to it. And it's that like V wrinkly forehead that comes down.
I wonder if that's the reason
the
for
snarl.
V.
Oh, she's like, everybody's got a V on their head. Maybe.
But I remember she had said, I don't know if it was on Face Off or it was an anniversary of Lost Boys or something, but she had said the way they did their nails was they're not pointed, they're at a slant shape, and she said she did that on purpose because it reminded her of razor blades, so that if they wanted to slice, it'd be at an angle,
Yeah.
and it'd be like razor blades
That's pretty
slicing.
Cool. That's a style of nail now. They call it the lipstick.
It was razor blades.
Well,
From
yeah,
Lost
I mean,
Boys.
I'm just saying that now that is a point you can get. I've never done it, but
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting.
I might if I was a vampire.
Fing, fing.
Yeah,
You're
that is interesting.
You'll be keeping a watch on your nails now.
Yeah. Now I want to watch it again and look, because I have noticed their nails do look different. They don't just look like the usual ones. So I guess you kind of see that difference in the.
You can really tell during Paul's death in the bathtub because the hands done gripping from the bathtub,
Yeah.
and you can see the nails look different.
I wonder if you can see it in the scene David gets burned.
Probably.
If you can see it really good in that one.
Probably.
I don't know, though, because where it happens so fast, but...
Yeah.
But probably when he's bringing it back to his face to look at his hand.
Something we haven't talked about are their feet.
Oh, they're the bat feet.
We have completely overlooked their creepy, weird feet with their top toe clinging to the, whatever bar they're hanging from.
With their pointed ass
It's trunk.
toenail.
Yeah, I'm like, how do they wear shoes? Do they have those feet all the time? Do they transform?
That is
I
a
have
good
questions.
But what
And
about
I need
answers? About the dang feet.
Like, is that why they wear boots? And they just walk around on their tippy toes?
V-Neil did not talk about the feet. She
Well,
just did
that's
the nails.
V, I need to know. I don't care about the tips of the nails. I need to know how the feet work.
What's up with the feet?
What do they do? How does it work?
Well, I think that's about it. I'm sure there's more stuff about the Lost Boys, but this is all I found, and it's still one of my favorites, and I think the facts just make it better.
It's such a good one. It's a classic to watch. Not necessarily even Halloween, because it's not super scary. It's just a good vampire movie.
It's from the 80s.
Yeah, everybody loves a good 80s movie.
Absolutely. Quick correction. We have discovered V-Neil did not do Buffy makeup. Who was it, Riley? So we can...
John Vulich.
Just wanted to make
Vulich.
that clear, because we were wrong.
But it was inspired.
Yes.
She did inspire and played some inspiration in that. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Until next time,
Remember, you can find us on
Our own website,
Facebook,
Instagram
YouTube.
Twitter.
and even Pinterest.
Links are in the description.
As always, stay weary.
Stay leery.
And stay eerie.